Su Li had an accident on the way to redeem the prize. When she opened her eyes again, she turned into a chubby woman from a hunter in Hejia Village, picking up a cheap husband and a pair of twin sons. Xianggong looks good, but he doesn't like to see himself. Moreover, the family's conditions are worrying. Although they have separated, there is still a monthly alimony payment. A certain man. Madam, you've worked hard. I'll beat your shoulders and rub your legs. Su Li glanced at him and said, I heard you don't like me. A certain man secretly complained in his heart. Madam, listen to my explanation, it's all a misunderstanding. Keywords of the novel. Explosive and cute double treasures. The fat lady of the Orion family has space but no pop-ups, explosive and cute double treasures. The fat lady of the Orion family has space. Download the complete text. Explosive and cute double treasures. The fat lady of the Orion family has space. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Crossing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Crossing. Why hasn't she woken up yet? Brother, do you think she's not dead? Then a milky and serious voice rang out. I don't think so. She hasn't sold us yet, how could she die? Su Li felt a small hand poking her face. If she dies, we won't have a mother. There was a hint of sadness in her small voice. Don't be afraid, brother will be your mother. Su Li. She opened her eyes forcefully, and saw two identical children. They looked about 3 or 4 years old, thin as chicks. Wow, she's awake. The two children saw Su Li open her eyes and jumped out of the distance in fear, as if she were a wicked old witch. As for this. Su Li pursed her lips, and she propped herself up on the bed with her hands. After sitting up, her mind kept buzzing. Where is this? Didn't she have a car accident? Looking at the unfamiliar environment in front of her, her brain quickly started running, and a memory that did not belong to her flooded into her mind. She traveled through different dynasties that did not exist in history. Her original owner, also known as Su Li, was 19 years old and the wife of Yufeng, a hunter from Hejia Village. Speaking of Su Li, even in 3 days and 3 nights, she couldn't finish it all because she has been lazy for years. Su Li is a standard chubby person, weighing 180 pounds. Moreover, Su Li has a hot temper, often scolding and yelling at her 2 biological twin sons. Whenever she doesn't like it, she doesn't give them food, which is also why the 2 children are so thin like little chicks. She fell into the river for some unknown reason this time, and by the time the villagers rescued her, she was unconscious. When she returned home, she had a high fever that persisted. Su Li's popularity is not good in her daily life, and the villagers don't care if they send her home. Yufeng has been hunting in the mountains and hasn't come back. There are only Su Li and 2 3-year-old children at home. The 2 children were frightened when they saw Su Li like this. They had never experienced such a thing before and didn't know how to hire a doctor for Su Li, so the original owner was burned away like this. Su Li looked at the 2 trembling children not far away and began to scrutinize the surrounding environment. The place she currently lives in can be described as dilapidated. The walls are surrounded by bamboo, which is the main body of the house, and the roof is covered with straw. If a storm comes down, their house will disappear. There aren't many things in the room, 1 table and a few benches, and that bench is missing a leg. The most valuable thing in the house. There really isn't one. Seeing this picture of the house, Su Li couldn't help but sigh, how poor. In theory, Yufeng is a hunter, and his hunting skills are not bad. His living conditions should not be so poor, but who made him fall for an old lady who is biased towards the sky, and a particularly unreliable lady. Every time Yufeng sells silver while hunting, Su Li takes the silver for various reasons. If Yufeng doesn't give it, she will abuse the 2 children. Yufeng can't always tie the children to his waistband, so he has no choice but to compromise with Su Li. So the days at home are getting worse day by day. The two children stared at Su Li with round eyes, and when they saw her sitting on the bed without speaking or shouting at them, they felt a bit uncomfortable for a moment. Hejia tugged at Hedahu's clothes and said, "Brother, look at her sitting in bed dumbfounded and not talking. Has her head been burned out?" In the past, as long as Su Li opened her eyes and looked like a madman, she would smash pots and bowls, but now it's as quiet as before. Hedahu stared straight at Su Li, as if wanting to see something wrong from her. Su Li felt his gaze and looked up at them. With such an ordinary gaze, Hejia almost scared out of urine. "Wu daddy, help me." Hejia seemed to be frightened and was about to run out while pulling Hedahu. Su Li, who looked innocent, blinked her eyes. Why did they run? It seems like she hasn't done anything. Hejia. Why don't you have any points in mind when running? Su Li ignored the two brothers who had run out. Her mind was now in a state of confusion and she had no intention of managing too much. According to the current situation, she is Gubili steamed bun in this house. Yufeng has no feelings for her in his memory, and even the two sons treat her like a snake and scorpion. The future life must be difficult. Ah, what's going on here? This is Su Li's 108th sigh. Hejia was lying on the window looking at the situation inside the room. When he heard Su Li sigh, he couldn't help but wonder and then ran to find Hedahu. "Brother," she sighed just now. Hejia's expression was somewhat worried. Hedahu glanced at his silly younger brother and touched his head, saying, "Eru, don't be fooled by her appearance. Let's stay away from her. We'll be safe when Dad comes back." "Ah-ha." Hejia nodded vigorously, looking like a well-behaved baby. Inside the house, Su Li was pondering life with her chin dragging. She was originally the 18th generation descendant of a small county traditional Chinese medicine clinic, but on a whim, she bought a lottery ticket and accidentally won 5 million yuan. The sudden surprise made her so excited that she couldn't sleep, just as she thought she was about to reach the pinnacle of life and become a happy little rich woman from then on. As a result, things didn't go as planned. Just as she was running excitedly to exchange lottery tickets, a mishap occurred on the way and she was hit by a car that ran a red light. Her happiness disappeared before it could last for 24 hours. When she opened her eyes again, she arrived at this place where birds don't poop. If she had dressed up as a beautiful and talented girl who had not yet left the court, it would have been fine. But heaven made her dress up as a top-notch old lady who is not loved by her husband or loved by her children. Su Li felt a little wilted all over, and just then her spare light caught sight of the lightning bear beside her pillow. "Did you come with me, little thing?" Su Li's whole body became lively again. She entrusted her friend's relatives to spend a lot of money to buy this, although it was a bit heartbreaking, who made her like it. She always carries this little thing with her, but she didn't expect to come with her this time. Su Li held the lightning bear in her hand, and a chill spread from her hand to her body. She felt a darkness in front of her, and when she opened her eyes again, she moved to a different place. Su Li looked at this mysterious place and saw a small wooden house right in front of her. In front of the small wooden house, there was a piece of black soil and a clear spring, with flowers blooming next to it. The cabin was like a magnet, constantly emitting a magnetic field that attracted her. "Why don't you go and take a look?" Su Li murmured softly. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Space Appearance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Space Appearance. Su Li pushed open the door of the wooden house. A familiar smell rushed in. Su Li looked at the rows of cabinets on the wall. She couldn't help but step forward and open them, but no matter how hard she tried, the cabinets remained motionless. It's really strange. She tried her best to breastfeed, and this cabinet didn't give her any face. She walked around the room again and found a yellowed paper in the corner. She reached out and picked it up. I see. After reading this piece of paper, Su Li already had a number in her heart. She is currently in the space, and this small wooden house is a store with levels ranging from 0 to 100. Each level has different items that can be purchased, and before upgrading, she does not know what is in the next level. It is completely in blind box mode. The current level of the store is 0, and 0 is not allowed to purchase anything, which is also why she couldn't open the cabinet just now. If you want to climb from level 0 to level 1, you need to pick 6 benzoin trees. Benzoin can cure stomach and stomach ailments, and this plant is generally found on slopes, valleys, sparse forests, or forest edges. This thing is not difficult to find, so Su Li decided to go to the mountain to take a look when she has time. Gulu, at this moment, Su Li's stomach rang uncontrollably. Su Li lowered her head and glanced at her disheartened stomach. People are iron, rice and steel, and if they don't eat a meal, they will get hungry. She should solve the problem in front of her first. Flashing out of space, Su Li touched the lightning bear. In the future, we will depend on each other. Lightning bear flashed a glimmer of light, as if responding to Su Li. Su Li chuckled lightly and put away the lightning bear. Her head was still a bit groggy, and Su Li reached out to touch her forehead, which was still very hot. The temperature felt over 39 degrees Celsius. This dynasty either spent money to see a doctor, or took their lives to bear it. The current silver in this family has long been depleted by the original owner, so there is still extra silver to go and see a doctor for her. She will still go pick some herbs herself and come back to fry them later, otherwise this little life will be hard to save. Hungry and dizzy, Su Li gritted her teeth and walked out of the house. She remembered that there was something she wanted outside the yard. Hieru was playing with mud in the yard when he saw Su Li come out. He was so scared that he threw out all the mud figures in his hand, but unfortunately, they landed on Su Li's shoe. Seeing this, Hieru's face turned pale with fear and instinctively hugged his head. Su Li lowered her head and glanced at the mud figure on the shoe upper. How ugly! She picked up the clay figurine, pinched it, and stuffed it into Hieru's hand before leaving. Hieru looked at the clay figurine in his hand for a long time and couldn't recover. She wasn't angry or hit him just now, and even pinched the clay figurine for him. Hieru pinched himself hard and said, "It hurts so much. This is not a dream." As soon as she left the yard, Su Li saw what she wanted. She dug up jimu and roasted licorice, which have the effect of reducing fever when boiled into soup. I found the fever-reducing medicine, and Su Li went to the kitchen to prepare the medicine. After seeing the so-called kitchen, Su Li couldn't help but twitch at the corner of her mouth. It's just a kitchen, surrounded by a few pieces of bamboo. At most, it won't get wet when it rains. In her past life, her chicken coop was even more luxurious than this. She didn't do anything wrong in her past life either. Why do you have to do something to her? No matter how bitter Su Li is, she has no choice but to accept reality. She boiled the picked cicadas and roasted licorice into juice, and the bitterness immediately came out. Two little heads were exploring outside, looking curious. "Where is the bowl?" Su Li asked. After searching for a while, she was stunned and didn't see a bowl. Hieru thought for a moment and took out the bowl at home. Su Li used to easily throw pots and bowls, and the two brothers were really worried to keep their only 4 bowls. Su Li looked at the 4 bowls in front of her, bitter and bitter. None of these bowls were good, the better ones were missing 1 mouthful, and some were missing several mouthfuls on top. Is there no other bowl left? Su Li looked at Hieru. Hieru's head shook like a tambourine and he said, "It's all here." He was afraid that Su Lichao would get angry and pull Hidahu away in a flash. Su Li roughly understood the situation in front of her and did not continue to struggle. She chose a better bowl to hold the medicinal juice. It is said that using a beautiful bowl to hold medicine will make it less bitter. After the medicine cooled down, Su Li pinched her nose and drank it. It's really bitter. Su Li spat out her tongue. My stomach started protesting again, and Su Li washed the pot clean and prepared to start cooking. There was nothing in the kitchen except for 2 pots. Su Li thought carefully, but because the kitchen couldn't hold anything, Yufeng locked everything inside and hid the key in a tattered old shoe. So Su Li skillfully opened the box with the key, which contained some corn residue and some flour. As for the rice, she didn't see a single grain. Su Li takes out the flour and corn residue. She plans to cook a corn congee and bake a vegetable cake. But she walked around the house without even any vegetable leaves. The original owner was someone who could only eat but not cook, and the grass in the garden was almost taller than a person. There were many wild vegetables growing outside the yard, so she walked out of the kitchen to pick some wild vegetable pancakes to eat. When Hidahu and Hieru saw Su Li come out, they shrank in fear and quickly covered their eyes with their hands, muttering incessantly. She can't see me, she can't see me. Su Li. The act of concealing one's ears and stealing the bell is really impressive, with smooth and flowing movements. It doesn't seem like it's the first time I've done this. Su Li walked past them without looking down or looking at them, as if she really couldn't see them. Hieru opened 2 fingers, revealing a slight gap, and turned to look at Su Li picking wild vegetables. Brother, what is she doing picking those grass for? Hidahu also looked at Su Li, his small head full of confusion. He was also curious about why Su Li picked grass. Their family didn't raise chickens and ducks, and there were no poultry to eat when they picked those grass. Su Li ignored them and washed the wild vegetables, chopped them into small pieces, and mixed them with flour. She heated the pot, brushed oil on it, and finally baked the pancakes on top. Hieru excitedly said, Brother, you see she added grass and flour together. Is she crazy? Hidahu frowned as he watched Su Li's movements. He was somewhat dissatisfied with Su Li's movements, but he dared not speak up to stop them. Don't worry about her, we'll have meat to eat when Dad comes back. But is she going to eat grass? Maybe. Is it really okay for us to let her eat grass? Faced with Hieru's words, Hidahu frowned, obviously unsure of how to handle the matter. If they run out to persuade Su Li, she will definitely beat them up, but what if she looks so pitiful while watching her eat grass? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Explanation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Explanation. Hidahu said seriously, those grass won't die if you eat them. I've seen the chicken from the iron egg family eat them before, and they're still living well now. Even if a chicken is eaten, it won't die, and if a person eats it, they shouldn't die either, right? Really? Hieru asked. Hidahu nodded vigorously and said, I never deceive anyone. I trust you. As a fan, Hieru has no doubt about the authenticity of this statement. In no time, the fragrance emanated from the kitchen. Hidahu and Hieru squatted outside the fence, smelling the aroma of the pancake and couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Gudong, what a loud drooling sound. Su Li hooked her lips and successfully devoured the child outside the fence, creating a sense of accomplishment. Brother, the things she makes are so fragrant. Hieru couldn't help but crave. Since his father went hunting in the mountains, they haven't had enough to eat. Be good, let's not eat, there's grass inside. Hidahu swallowed the loudest saliva and said tough words. After the vegetable cake and corn congee are out of the pot, Su Li shouts to the outside of the fence. Come and have dinner quickly. No one responded to Su Li. Su Li doesn't care either. She's already starving and baked 3 pancakes in total. She ate 1 and left 2 for those 2 awkward little ones. Her current physique is not suitable for eating too much, she needs to try to control her diet as much as possible. When Su Li finished eating the cake from the bowl, the two brothers Hidahu and Hieru were still squatting outside the fence, with no intention of returning it. Su Li looked at the round little head outside the fence and found it amusing. She deliberately said loudly, "This cake is really unpleasant. The remaining two can't be eaten at all, why don't you throw it away?" Upon hearing these words, Hidahu stood up in a fit of anger, forgetting his fear of Su Li for a moment, and said with a small milk voice, "You are not allowed to waste food like this. They can't eat enough, and since she still wants to throw away the food, he must tell Dad when he comes back and give her some color to see." Hieru stood aside and nodded in agreement, "Yes, food is all bought with money, so you can't waste it." Su Li looked at the things on the plate with a puzzled expression and said, "Why don't you keep them?" "I don't want to eat them. This thing is really terrible. It's really difficult to coax a child now." "We'll help you eat," Hieru immediately answered. Su Li looked at the two awkward little ones and tried not to laugh out loud. "Okay then. I also think it's a pity to lose it, so please help me eat." Upon hearing these words, Hidahu and Hieru immediately rushed over, looking like hungry wolves pouncing on meat. "Go wash your hands first," Su Li said as she looked at their dark little hands. "These two children are really dirty, their clothes are dirty, their hands and faces are also dirty, and I don't know how their parents take care of them." Hidahu and Hieru were obedient at the moment, turning a corner and running to the water tank to fetch water and wash their hands. They also occasionally turned around to look at Su Li, afraid that she would turn back. Su Li was thinking about the shops in the space and wished to unlock and upgrade them now. Taking advantage of the early weather, why not go to the mountain to see if she can find the benzoin? "I'm going out for a trip, please stay at home and don't run around," Su Li said as she looked at the two of them who were eating hard. Hidahu and Hieru were stunned. They didn't expect Su Li to say these things to them. In the past, she didn't even know where to go. As long as they dared to ask a little more, she would beat them up. Over time, they learned to behave well. The He family lives at the foot of the mountain, not far from the village center. Standing here, you can see the houses in the village center. In addition to the He family, there are 4 other households at the foot of the mountain. The walls of those 4 households were made of mud, and although there were also many cracks on the walls and the roofs were covered with thatch, compared to the He family, they could be called luxury houses. At this moment, a thin and weak woman happened to come out of the yard. When she saw Su Li standing at the door, a hint of fear flashed in her eyes, and her expression became even more stiff. Standing at the door, neither entering nor exiting was possible. For eyes met, and in the end, the woman couldn't resist the pressure and spoke up. "Sister, my sister.in.law's eggs have been sold and there are no more eggs to sell to you now. She has some regrets now. She should have sold the eggs early this morning. If Su Li sees them later, she will definitely take those eggs again." Xianggong couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She thought moving to the foot of the mountain would bring her peace, but she didn't expect to meet Su Li, a neighbor again. Su Li was confused and flipped through her memory, finding memories of the woman in front of her. This woman's name is Xianggong, and she is one of their neighbors. Xianggong's husband, Hejia, is lame due to injury and cannot do heavy work. Hejia is insecure and does not like to interact with others. Therefore, when dividing the family, he resolutely chose the foot of the mountain. Xianggong and Su Li are 2 completely different people. Xianggong is a diligent person who takes care of both the house and the outside tightly. Her family also raises a lot of chickens, and Xianggong will save up eggs to sell for household subsidies in the town. Su Li, a neighbor, occasionally goes to Xianggong's house to buy eggs. Every time Su Li comes to Xianggong's door, she shakes 3 times. Su Li is not only lazy, but also has greater strength than ordinary women. Xianggong cannot beat or scold her, and can only silently endure all of this. Su Li couldn't help but sweat when she thought of the things that had happened to the main body, and those memories came to mind clearly. She had already awkwardly removed the 3-bedroom and 1 living room. Su Li showed a friendly voice and a smile that she thought was very friendly. Chen Xiang's eyelids twitched when she saw Su Li's smile, and she felt that Su Li's visit was a bit ill-intentioned. Su Li explained to her frightened expression, "Sister-in-law, I don't buy eggs. I'll go up the mountain and take a look. So don't be afraid, she's a good citizen now and won't do those things. Then you go." Chen Xiang breathed a sigh of relief, as long as he didn't cause any trouble for her. Su Li smiled and nodded at her, then turned around with the basket on her back and left. Chen Xiang dug soil next to the stone in front of the house with a hoe, intending to move the stone that was blocking the house. The stone already existed before their family could move here. The fortune teller said that this stone has affected their family's luck here, and asked her to quickly move it away. This stone weighs 180 pounds, and the other part has been buried in the soil for some years. It's not easy to push it away. Her man can't do heavy work, so she can only grit her head and do these things. Chen Xiang dug up all the soil next to the stone, revealing its original appearance. She pushed the stone hard without moving a single bit. Ah! Chen Xiang tried again, but the stone remained motionless. When Chen Xiang tried to exert more force, her face turned pale and she supported her waist with both hands. At this moment, a pair of chubby hands were placed on the stone. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Help. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Help. Su Li gritted her teeth and exerted all her strength to breastfeed. Chen Xiang looked surprised as Su Li suddenly appeared. Didn't she leave? Why did she suddenly come back and kindly help her? Where are you pushing the stones? Su Li watched Chen Xiang grit her teeth in a daze. She was almost exhausted, and Chen Xiang still had time to be stunned. Over there. Chen Xiang pointed a place to Su Li. Su Li pushed the stone hard and when it came out of the pit, it slipped back. Su Li silently moved her foot away. Chen Xiang supported her waist and followed behind Su Li. All right. Su Li clapped her hands. Thank you so much today. Chen Xiang's tone choked up. In the past few years of marriage, because her man was a cripple, the village people looked down on her and even looked down on her and her child. Don't mention helping her, there's not even a good word to say. Su Li noticed that Chen Xiang's hand was constantly supporting her waist, probably because she twisted it while pushing the stone just now. Your waist seems to be twisted, let me help you take a look. No, no need. Chen Xiang dodged. Su Li said with a stern expression, if you don't receive timely treatment, your waist will hurt for at least 3 months. If you can't work anymore, then help me take a look. Before Su Li could finish speaking, Chen Xiang quickly took her words. Su Li followed Chen Xiang into the room. Chen Xiang awkwardly rolled up her clothes, and Su Li glanced and pinched them again. It was indeed a sprain, but fortunately it wasn't too serious. Hiss! Chen Xiang gasped in pain. Su Li looked very experienced and said, I twisted it. Don't do heavy work these days. I'll give you a prescription and drink it for a few days. If only there were silver needles, she would get a few injections to ensure that the disease is cured. Chen Xiang's expression was somewhat inexplicable, with a hesitant expression. Su Li thought she was too moved and didn't think otherwise. She directly prescribed a prescription for Chen Xiang and advised her. Remember to go get the medicine. Chen Xiang nodded and said, thank you very much. She has never heard of Su Li being skilled in medicine. Prescriptions are like a family's play. Don't poison her to death later. Anyway, she'll handle the situation in front of her first, and Su Li won't be able to control whether or not she catches the medicine afterwards. After coming out of Chen Xiang's house, Su Li walked straight up the mountain. This time, she not only wanted to pick benzoin, but also planned to dig some wild vegetables to go back home. There were no vegetables to eat at home, and if she didn't dig any wild vegetables, there was no place for dinner. Chicken head vegetables. Su Li had just finished picking benzoin when she discovered a large patch of cockscomb, which was simply a big surprise. The tender leaves and inflorescences of cockscomb can be eaten, the whole grass and seeds can be used as medicine, and the seeds can also be used as a substitute for sesame in pastries. She really found a treasure this time. Su Li rolled up her sleeves and started cutting cockscomb vegetables with the broken sickle in her basket. Looking at the baskets full of cockscomb vegetables, Su Li finally stopped. Su Li looked up and wiped the sweat off her forehead. The fever had just subsided, and with another burst of sweat, she felt even weaker. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, a rustling sound came from behind. Su Li's hair stood up. It's getting dark, shouldn't there be some fierce beast descending the mountain? Su Li lowered her head and glanced at the sickle with a missing mouth, her heart racing. No matter what, running for 30.6 is the top priority. Su Li exerted the power of the wilderness and quickly ran out, leaving only a trace behind. Yufeng looked at the back of the runner with an expressionless expression, carrying the things on his shoulders and continuing to walk back. Su Li finally ran to the foot of the mountain, panting heavily on her knees. Her body was a bit weak and needed to be well replenished. "Brother, she's back." Hejia stood at the entrance of the courtyard and immediately shouted towards the courtyard when he saw Su Li's figure. Hejia pretended not to care and stood up, looking at the door. "Just go back, can she still be lost as a big person?" Su Li approached and saw Hejia standing at the entrance of the courtyard, thinking he was waiting for her. She just showed a friendly smile and was about to say hello to Hejia. Before she could speak, Hejia's figure disappeared. The sound of Hejia buzzing in the courtyard. "Brother, she just smiled at me. She looks really good when she smiles." Hejia recalled Su Li's smile on him just now, and a hint of silly smile couldn't help but appear on his face. He chuckled unconsciously. Hejia said seriously, "Don't be fooled by her appearance, be careful that she takes us to sell again." Su Li. In my memory, the original owner really did something like this. Once, Hejia and Hejia were bullied outside and cried all the way home. I originally wanted to sue Su Li for help. Who knew that the original owner was annoyed by their crying, so he took them to the town and prepared to sell these two children. If it weren't for Yufeng arriving in time, these two children might have really been sold by the original owner. Su Li couldn't help but support her forehead. Did the original owner's brain twitch? She even sold her own biological son. Su Li couldn't help but look at the dirty brothers and cooked a big pot of water to help them take a bath. "What are you doing?" Hejia tightly grasped the clothes on his chest. Su Li rolled up her sleeves and said, "Of course I'll help you take a shower. Don't even see how dark you are anymore. Hurry up and take off your clothes for me." Hejia said with a righteous tone, "Dad said that men and women are not compatible, so you cannot take off my clothes." Su Li. A 3-year-old kid told her that men and women are not compatible. Su Li's expression was fierce as she waved her fist in her hand and said, "Come take a shower, or I'll beat you up." "All right then." Hejia surrendered first. He won't tell anyone, he just wants Su Li to help him take a shower. From his memory, Su Li has never been so kind to him. He can't wait for such a thing, only a fool would refuse. Hejia glanced at Hejia, who had no backbone, and then showed a face of embarrassment but also helplessness. Su Li looked at the two people who were honestly immersed in the water in front of her and thought to herself that reasoning is useless. A hard fist is the right thing. Su Li carefully helped the two brothers take a shower. There was no soap here, so she could only use soap pods to rub them. In no time, a layer of black substance floated up in the basin. Su Li suppressed the feeling of nausea and cursed Yufeng and the original owner repeatedly in her heart. Yufeng had not yet entered the yard when he heard the laughter in my room. His footsteps stopped outside, unsure if he had gone in the wrong place. Alright, the water is getting cold and getting up quickly. Su Li's voice came from inside the room. Immediately after, Hidahu and Hieru obediently agreed. Since that woman would be kind enough to bathe the child. This doesn't seem like her. Hidahu and Hieru didn't have many decent clothes, and each piece of clothing had several holes. Su Li chose one for them to wear first, and she will mend it later. Daddy is back. Hieru circled around the room and caught sight of Yufeng. Excitedly, he rushed towards him. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Yufeng returns. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Yufeng returns. Upon hearing these words, Hidahu also looked towards the door. When he saw Yufeng standing outside the courtyard, he rushed over with him. Yufeng threw the wild boar on his shoulder into the yard, crouched down and picked up the two brothers with both hands. Su Li stood in front of the main house and looked at the man holding the child in the yard. The slanted and upright sword eyebrows, slender with sharp black eyes, thin and lightly pursed lips, sharp and angular contours, slender and tall yet not rough figure, like an eagle in the dark night. His clothes were still stained with bloodstains, and it was unclear whether it was his own or the wild boar on the ground. At this moment, he looked at the Hidahu brothers with a hint of tenderness in his eyes. Suddenly, his gaze turned to Su Li, his eyes facing each other. Su Li didn't move his gaze and just stared at Yufeng. Yufeng frowned and moved his gaze away. Today's Su Li gave him a very strange feeling. Although he was still the same person, he always felt that Su Li in front of him had changed. However, it was not his business. As long as she did not abuse the two children, anything could be said. Dad, you're so amazing. You've beaten back such a big wild boar. Hieru looked at Yufeng with a look of admiration. Su Li looked at the wild boar in the yard and had to say that Yufeng was indeed a skilled hunter. With this wild boar, the family could buy a lot of things. Yufeng let down the two little ones. Hieru pouted with some displeasure. Yufeng explained, Dad's body is dirty. You just washed it clean, don't get your clothes dirty. Su Li rolled her eyes and hugged everyone. Now, isn't this equivalent to taking off her pants and farting? Hidahu and Hieru flattered Yufeng. Dad is not dirty at all, he still has a fragrant smell on his body. Dad still has a heroic and invincible aura on him, I really like it. Su Li sneered and didn't want to see them flattering, so she turned around and went to the kitchen to cook dinner. Yufeng is handling wild boars in the yard, and Su Li can tell from his skillful movements that he often does these things. Su Li said to Yufeng, cut me a piece of meat. There's no more vegetables at home, and the child is growing and not eating meat. As clever as her, using children as an excuse is definitely right. Yufeng listened to her words and kept moving, but still cut a piece of meat and threw it to her. I had some meat to eat at night, and it was still wild boar meat. Su Li happily took the meat back to the kitchen. Hidahu and Hieru stared eagerly at the meat in Su Li's hand. They had already tasted her cooking skills at noon, and now they couldn't help but have some expectations in their hearts. Su Li looked at the wild boar meat and felt a bit worried. They all said that a clever woman can cook without rice. Now that there is meat, there are no ingredients at home except for oil and salt. The wild boar meat itself has a fishy smell, and if the fishy meat is not removed, the taste will not be too good. She remembers that Xianggong's family seemed to have planted ginger, why not borrow some ginger to come back? As soon as Su Li's idea arose, she heard Xianggong's voice outside the door. Is Miss Su Li at home? Xianggong looked at Yufeng, who was dealing with wild boars with a knife, and felt a little scared. The two of them were becoming more and more frightening. What's up? Yufeng asked. Xianggong lifted the egg in her hand and said, so what? I'll give Su Li some eggs. Yufeng looked at the egg in Xianggong's hand and frowned, thinking to himself that it was probably Su Li who came to bully others again. He said it many times but she didn't change. Take the eggs back, and if she comes back in the future, use a broom to drive her out. If it's really not possible, come over and tell me. Xianggong twitched his lips and told him it was useful. He was still tightly controlled by Su Li. Yufeng saw Xianggong's thoughts and a hint of embarrassment flashed on his face. Every time he mentioned Su Li, she would threaten him with her children. The two children were his weak points, which allowed Su Li to seize the handle and run over him to act recklessly. Su Li walked out of the room and saw an awkward scene in the yard. Xianggong breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Su Li come out. Compared to Su Li, Yufeng made her even more breathless. Sister, I'm here to send you eggs. Thank you for helping me this morning. Su Li waved her hand and said, it's just a matter of convenience. Take the eggs back and I remember your family planted some ginger. If you want to thank me, why don't you lend me some ginger? Yufeng glanced at Su Li. Luckily he thought she had changed, but he didn't expect her to still look like this ghost. It's true that dogs can't change their behavior. Xianggong was stunned for a moment, not expecting Su Li to refuse her eggs. She also heard that Su Li wanted ginger, so she quickly said. Okay, you can go to the vegetable garden to pull out as much as you want. After speaking, she regretted it again. There will always be two. Today, let Su Li go to the vegetable garden to pick ginger, and tomorrow Su Li will go to her garden to pick vegetables. What should she do? According to Su Li's urine habits, she won't stop until the vegetables in the garden are picked clean. Xianggong wished he could slap himself and do some foolish things all day long. Thank you very much, sister. Lol. Su Li thanked Xianggong and then walked skillfully towards Xianggong's vegetable garden. Xianggong bit her lip and left the egg in the kitchen. Although Su Li said no, she couldn't really refuse to give it. If Su Li remembered that day and asked for it again, it would be troublesome. Su Li stir-fried the cockscomb and wild boar meat together, and soon the fragrance drifted out. It smells so good. Hieru sniffed. Although Hidahu didn't speak, he also swallowed saliva. There was no rice at home, so Su Li baked a cake at night. She tried to replace sesame seeds with cockscomb seeds and put them in the cake. The taste was no different from sesame. Let's eat. Su Li arranged the food and shouted to the father and son in the yard. Hidahu and Hieru couldn't wait any longer. When they heard Su Li call to eat, they were very conscious of washing their hands because they would get beaten if they didn't wash their hands while eating. Su Li walked out carrying a bowl of meat. Hidahu and Hieru carefully glanced at her. What is she doing now that she's already eaten? She has a bowl in her hand, and I see that it's all meat. Could it be eating alone without us? The two brothers changed their faces, and there was a high possibility that Su Li was not the kind of selfless person after all. Yufeng looked at the brothers whispering to each other and said, wash your hands and eat, and be careful of other people's affairs. If Su Li hears Hidahu and Hieru talking about her behind her back, she doesn't know what's going on. Yes, the two brothers nodded obediently. Su Li looked at the tightly closed courtyard door of Xianggong's house and knocked on her door with the bowl of meat. Who is it? Xianggong is cooking in the kitchen. It's me, Su Li said. Ouch. Xianggong heard Su Li's voice being scalded by the pot, and then hurriedly began to hide the stir-fried vegetables. Fortunately, she has foresight and closes the courtyard door every time she cooks. Xianggong trimmed her hair before opening the door and said, Miss, what's up with you? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Wang Chunhua visits the door. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Wang Chunhua visits the door. Su Li handed the meat from the bowl and said, here you are. This. Xianggong looked at the meat in front of her and was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Su Li looked at Xianggong motionless and walked over her directly into the kitchen. Xianggong was surprised and chased after her. Su Li put the bowl of meat into Chen Xiang's bowl and waved her sleeve without taking away a cloud. Chen Xiang couldn't come to her senses as she looked at the meat in the bowl for a long time. Who came just now? Hejia walked out of the room. It's Miss Su Li, she brought us some meat, Chen Xiang said. Hejia frowned, obviously not believing Chen Xiang's words. He had seen what kind of person Su Li was, and if she brought them meat, the sun would definitely come out from the west. Su Li saw Yufeng and his son sitting at the table, and the food was still the same as before she went out. She nodded in satisfaction and knew that they were waiting, which was commendable. Yufeng doesn't know what Su Li thinks. If he knows that Su Li is appointed to complain about his love and that Su Li has cooked the meal, if they eat first, they won't be quiet tonight. Let's eat. Su Li sat on the bench with a big sister-like tone. Upon hearing these words, Hejia and Hejia immediately picked up chopsticks to pick up meat and ate it, their mouths full of oil. I'm sweating all over today, and Su Li feels sticky on her body. She's going to boil a pot of water to take a shower. When she arrived at the water tank, she realized that the water had already bottomed out, and there was not enough water for her to take a shower. Today she cooked a big pot of water for the two little ones. At that time, there wasn't much water in the tank. Later, when she cooked and washed dishes, the water had already bottomed out. She thought it was tap water from her past life, and as soon as she turned on the faucet, there was water. To use water here, she had to go to the well at the village entrance to fetch water. If there was a peak season for fetching water, she would have to queue up. Su Li patted her forehead. Why did she forget about it? It's already dark, will she be bitten by a dog when she goes to fetch water now? After all, the original owner was someone who even chased after dogs. While she was worrying, Yufeng came back carrying 2 buckets of water. Su Li's eyes lit up, it was really timely rain. Take this bucket of water to the kitchen, I need to take a shower, Su Li instructed Yufeng directly. Yufeng poured a bucket of water into the water tank and placed another bucket of water in front of Su Li, with a clear intention of letting her do it herself. If she doesn't help, then she doesn't have the strength. Su Li easily picked up the bucket of water and poured it into the pot with a splash. After taking a shower, Su Li couldn't wait to enter the space. She put the benzoin she had picked back into the store, and the first cabinet opened easily. There are chili seeds inside. If you need to purchase, you need to pick 6 more benzoin trees and exchange them for a certain amount of chili to elevate the store to level 2. Su Li. She always feels like this is a pit. She has benzoin, but she just doesn't want to exchange it. Su Li chose to plant benzoin on the black soil. After finishing all of this, Su Li lay in bed. She thought tonight was a sleepless night, but when she woke up, the sun had already risen. Yufeng had already dragged the wild boar meat to the town to sell before dawn, and Su Li was a bit frustrated. She should have gotten up early and instructed Yufeng to buy something back, otherwise the family would really run out of food. Where are the people? Are they all dead? Chunhua rudely pushed open the courtyard door, and the already unbearable bamboo door fell to the ground with a bang. Chunhua lowered her head and glanced at the bamboo door, cursed, unlucky, then pulled Hejia Bao and walked inside. Hejia and Hejia couldn't help but shudder when they heard the sound outside, obviously afraid of the owner of the sound. Brother, what should we do? Grandma is here. Hejia tightly grasped Hejia's arm. Hejia stretched his neck and looked out, saying, let's hide and don't go out. Yufeng is not at home, while Su Li is clearing land behind the house, so there are only 2 brothers at home. Su Li only had some fragmented memories in her mind. She didn't know how the He family was divided. Yufeng didn't get a piece of land, and this cognition made her want to point at Yufeng's nose and curse, not getting anything. Isn't this a big injustice? Without farmland, Su Li had to choose to cultivate land. Fortunately, both the front and back of the house belonged to them, and after the cultivation, they could plant things. Wang Chunhua started looking around as soon as she entered the yard, but she didn't see anyone scolding her a few more times. Did they all fall into the pit and turn into maggots? Do you still have any breathing? No one responded to Wang Chunhua. Hejia Village fanned the flames and said, "Grandma, they must have known you were coming, so they hid early in the morning just to not meet you." Wang Chunhua spat to the side and said, "Pooh. If the monks can run away, they can't run away from the temple. I don't believe they won't come back all day. If I don't see anyone today, I won't leave. Grandma, Hidahu and Hieru must be at home. I'll help you find them." Hejia Village searched around the house and outside, but didn't see the figures of Hidahu and Hieru. Where did they go? Hejia Village scratched his head. They didn't go out to play today, they must still be at home. Hejia Village searched everywhere he could, but still couldn't find it. Achoo! A sneezing sound came from under the bed. Hieru tightly covered his mouth and nose. Just now, his nose suddenly itched and he couldn't help but sneeze. "Done, I've been discovered now." Hieru tightly grasped Hidahu's clothes, and Hidahu patted his hand to signal that he was okay. In fact, he was also very anxious in his heart. Hejia Village looked at the bed with a strange smile on his face. How could he forget the bottom of the bed? It's really a godsend. He lay on the ground and looked at the bottom of the bed, his 6 eyes facing each other. The eyes of Hidahu and Hieru shrank, feeling somewhat bewildered. Hejia Village stood up as if he had found a treasure and shouted outside the yard, "Grandma has found it. They are hiding under the bed." Wang Chunhua walked in and shouted under the bed. "Little bunny, since you're hiding here, didn't you hear me talking earlier? Are you deaf or mute? Get out of here now." Hidahu and Hieru hid inside without any intention of coming out. Hejia Village's eyes rolled and he found a stick outside to hit under the bed. "Come on out, come on out." Hidahu and Hieru had nowhere to hide and were beaten hard several times. Wang Chunhua pointed to the bottom of the bed and said, "Did you come out and hear me? Otherwise, I'll skin you later." "Coming out or not, I'll peel off your dog's skin," Hejia Village agreed on the side. Under the threat of Wang Chunhua, Hidahu and Hieru had no choice but to crawl out of the bed. They had just crawled out of the bed when Wang Chunhua twisted their ears. "What does it mean to hide as soon as I come? Can't you treat me like a fierce beast? Did your mother teach me that?" Hieru cried in pain and said, "Pain, pain, pain. Grandma, please let go quickly. We really didn't hear you. The new book is not easy, and the person seeking votes, ***, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. Something's Wrong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Something's Wrong. Wang Chunhua spat at their faces, and a mouthful of old phlegm happened to hit Hieru's face. "Didn't you hear me? Do you think I didn't know that you deliberately avoided me? You unfilial and despicable people don't know what to raise them for. They should have thrown you into the toilet and drowned you long ago. It's really unsightly to keep you in this world. Look at your mother, there is no one in the village who is more despicable than her, and the children she gives birth to are like a sissy who cries at any moment, making it annoying to look at. It's better to die pure and innocent." Hejia Village nodded and agreed, "That's right, there's no one in the whole village who hates you more." Hidahu and Hieru lowered their heads and dared not speak. "Where are your parents?" Wang Chunhua didn't see Suli and Yufeng, and could only interrogate the Hidahu brothers. Hieru said in a muffled tone, "I don't know. Even if they knew, they wouldn't say that every time Grandma comes to her door, there's nothing good. Grandma, look at the meat patties here." Hejia Village flipped around the room and finally found the meat patty Suli made for the Hidahu brothers at noon in the pot. How fragrant! Hejia Village took a breath and was tempted by the aroma of the meat patty. "This is our thing, you're not allowed to eat it." Hidahu snatched the meat patty from Hejia Village's hand. This is their lunch. If He Jinbao eats it, they will go hungry soon. He Dahu looked at the meat cake being bitten and felt a bit down. This afternoon, he and He Eru each had a piece of cake because they couldn't bear to eat it all at once. The two of them summed it up. They shared a piece of cake first, and the remaining piece was eaten when they became greedy. However, they were bitten by He Jinbao. Give it back to me. The meat patty that reached his mouth was stolen, and He Jinbao was very dissatisfied. He reached out to grab it back. He Dahu hid the meat patty behind him and said, I can't give it to you. This is our lunch. If we give it to you, we will go hungry. He Jinbao doesn't care how much he tries to grab. He is 2 years older than He Dahu, and he is much taller and heavier than He Dahu. He Dahu was about to run with a meat patty when He Jinbao caught up and grabbed the back of He Dahu's neck. When he knocked He Dahu down, he used his own weight to tightly press him under his body. If you give it to me, then give it to me. Even the little wild seed will be paired with meat patties. Let's have your spring and autumn dreams. He Dahu tightly grasped the cake in his hand and hid it behind him. No matter how He Jinbao treated him, he did not take out the meat cake. Don't give it to me, right? Then I'll show you my prowess. He Jinbao tried repeatedly to sit down from top to bottom, trying to crush He Dahu to death. Cough cough, He Dahu coughed painfully due to being hit. Wang Chunhua watched coldly from the side. As long as He Jinbao didn't suffer, she wouldn't intervene. It wasn't her big baby who was injured, and she didn't feel any pain at all. He Eru saw his own brother being pressed under him, pushed Wang Chunhua aside, and rushed out. He forcefully pushed He Jinbao off He Dahu's body. He Jinbao was not on guard and was directly pushed to the ground. He Eru also pressed on He Jinbao's body, waving his small fist and giving him a beating. Let you hit my brother, let you hit my brother. Wang Chunhua saw He Jinbao being beaten, and her face turned black. She immediately ran over and rudely pushed He Eru away. Little wild seed, you dare to fight your brother. Is that how your parents usually teach you? He Jinbao hugged Wang Chunhua's thigh tightly as if he had seen a savior and said, Woo-woo. Grandma saved me, I hurt so much, my whole body hurts. Wang Chunhua's heart was hurting so much that she touched He Jinbao's head. Jinbao, be good. Grandma will definitely help you regain justice. Grandma, you're so kind. He Jinbao sniffed and looked at the He Dahu brothers proudly. Wang Chunhua picked up a bamboo stick on the side and prepared to give the He Dahu brothers a chubby beating. He Eru pulled He Dahu and ran away, and his father said that the hero didn't suffer from the current situation. If he couldn't beat him, he should run away quickly. Grandma, they ran away. He Jinbao stomped his foot anxiously. Wang Chunhua chased after her with a bamboo piece in her hand. Little bunny, where are you running today? He Eru turned around and saw that Wang Chunhua was about to catch up. In a hurry, he tripped over a stone under his feet and fell to the ground. He immediately covered his face tightly with both hands, and Motzi from the village said that face is the face of a person, so Shirku's face cannot be humiliated. After waiting for a while, there was no pain as he had imagined. He quietly opened 2 fingers and through the gap, he saw a large and thick figure. Suli held a hoe in one hand and tightly grasped the bamboo piece that Wang Chunhua waved towards He Eru in the other. Before Wang Chunhua could speak, Suli split the bamboo in half and threw the half in her hand onto the ground, even stepping on it with her foot. This is my home. If you want to show off your authority, go out and turn left before turning left. Isn't turning left again after going out the door the next door neighbor's toilet? Is this little slut asking her to go to the pit to find shit? Thinking of this, Wang Chunhua looked angry and said, Third daughter. In law, how did you teach the children? Jinbao just wants to play with them. They rely on the number of people to press He Jinbao, which is a fat beating. If I hadn't stopped him in time, they could have damaged Jinbao. If you don't give me an explanation today, I won't finish with you all. Hejia Village pointed at the Hejia brothers and said, Auntie, hurry up and kill them for me to decide, otherwise I'll have my parents come and take care of you. Hejia Village is the son of Yufeng and the most favored person among the grandchildren of the He family. Hejia Village is always close to his family's food. Only Yufeng was separated from the He family, while the other three still lived with Wang Chunhua and his wife. The old He family was still dominated by Wang Chunhua. Hejia was afraid that Su Li would misunderstand, so he quickly explained, it's not like that. It's Hejia Village who snatched our meat patties, and he keeps hitting his brother. I don't want my brother to get hurt and push him over. After speaking, Hejia lowered his head and buttoned his fingers, looking both guilty and helpless. Is that so? Su Li looked at Hejia. Hejia sucked his nose and bit his lips hard, his eyes a bit sore. As long as he blinked hard, tears would fall from his eyes. Su Li gave Hejia Village a cold glance. Wang Chunhua said discontentedly, don't listen to them talking nonsense. These two children are full of nonsense, without a word of truth in their mouths, and I don't know how you usually teach them. If this continues, these two children will be completely useless. Su Li took the meat cake from Hejia's hand and patted the dust on it. The tooth marks on this patty look like Hejia Village's teeth to me. If they lie, how could there be tooth marks on this patty? End of this chapter. What silver do you need in chapter 8? You are listening at novelfull.audio. What silver do you need in chapter 8? Wang Chunhua glanced at the meat cake and thought to herself, this fragrant meat cake is really a pity. Those two little brats are also too ignorant. Will letting the meat cake out die? It's just that Hejia Village took a sip. What's so surprising about this? You, as an aunt, shouldn't even be reluctant to give your child a bite of food, right? Su Li chuckled lightly and said, of course not. No matter how rare something is, she is willing to give it to her child, but the prerequisite is that the person is her child. Wang Chunhua proudly said, that's it. What else is there to say? Su Li continued, this is the last bit of food in our family. We won't have any food to cook at night. As an elder, you wouldn't even be willing to give us a bite to eat, would you? Wang Chunhua choked and even wanted to go to their house for dinner. Don't even think about it. Even if these little sluts starve to death, it's not her business. What does it have to do with whether you have food or not? Even if we split up, I still care about your life and death. If you don't have food, it's your own laziness. What does it have to do with me? If you dare to come to your door, I'll sweep you out with a broom. Fortunately, they were separated, otherwise there would have been a few more free lunch items at home, which looked annoying. Su Li withdrew her smile and said coldly, since you remember we were separated, why did you come knocking on our door to grab our food and even hit my child? You're so fearless as robbers now. Taking advantage of her not being at home, the children who hit her are really not as brave as they are when they grab their belongings. Wang Chunhua looked excited after Su Li's words and said, who are you saying is a bandit? It's just a child's fight. Why are you making a big deal out of a molehill? You don't have the guts at all. Fortunately, you're still an ant. Hejia Village looks up to you when he eats your family's food. When he grows up and makes a name for himself, he even ate your family's food when he was a child, and when he said it, you can still get a touch of it. Su Li rolled her eyes as she listened to Wang Chunhua's crooked reasoning. Whoever likes to touch this kind of light, anyway, she doesn't want to touch it at all. Does it hurt? Su Li asked Hejia. Hejia shook his head, and his father said that a man should not easily say he hurts. He wants to be a strong man. Su Li obviously didn't believe Hejia's words. She carefully checked and found that Hejia had several bruises on his body. The expression on Su Li's face became increasingly cold. Come and apologize to Dehu. Su Li looked at Hejia Village. Hejia Bao pouted disdainfully, so he wouldn't apologize to this little wild seed. As soon as Wang Chunhua heard Su Li make Hejia Bao apologize, her voice became sharp. Why make Hejia Bao apologize? Look at what Hejia did to him. How dare you think about making Hejia Bao apologize? Why don't you dream? Su Li glanced at Hejia Bao but didn't notice any obvious injuries on his body. She glanced at Wang Chunhua and said, I will naturally ask Who to apologize for hitting someone. Today is Hejia Bao's first mistake, and he must apologize to Who. Wang Chunhua took a sip towards the ground and said, Pooh. Apologize. You're a big-headed ghost. Let her precious grandson apologize to this little bastard and ask him to reincarnate first. Su Li stood up and walked towards Hejia Bao, saying, It's okay if you don't apologize. Then I'll take Hejia Bao to the big brother and ask him. Is that how he teaches children? If my elder brother also said the same, then I'll go to the village chief's house and ask if it's okay to run to someone else's house to grab something to eat and even injure them. Yufeng is the eldest son of Wang Chunhua. He is extremely face-saving and never allows others to say that he is not at all good. Moreover, Wang Chunhua loves this eldest son the most. Today's incident is the fault of Hejia Bao. If Yufeng finds out about it, no matter what he thinks, for the sake of his so-called face, Hejia Bao will definitely have a meal of stir-fried bamboo shoots and meat today. Wang Chunhua clearly thought of this too. She gave Su Li a fierce glare and said to Hejia Bao. Hejia Bao, be good, go over and apologize to him. I won't go. Hejia Bao pouted. He's not wrong, why apologize to that little bastard? Wang Chunhua glanced at Su Li and noticed that she was embracing her with both hands, as if she was ready to complain at any time. Su Li took Hedahu's hand and said, Let's go find your uncle and say something. Stop. Wang Chunhua's silver teeth were about to be bitten to pieces, and she endured the anger in her heart to continue persuading Hejia Bao. Hejia Bao, go to apologize. Grandma will cook braised pork belly for you in 2 days. If you don't apologize, your father will know that Grandma can't protect you. Hejia Bao was extremely reluctant, but also afraid that Su Li would really pull Hedahu to find his father. He knew his father's temper, and although he also loved him in his daily life, once he touched the issue of face, it would be useless for the Emperor Laozi to come. Sorry. Hejia Bao's voice was even quieter than a mosquito. Su Li said, Speak up, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. Hejia Bao roared out, then hugged Wang Chunhua's leg and burst into tears. This made Wang Chunhua feel heartbroken. She quickly comforted Hejia Bao and greeted the entire Su Li family in her heart. Su Li looked at Hejia and said, Go over and apologize to him. Hejia is unwilling to go over and apologize. He thinks he is not wrong, why apologize to Hejia Bao? Go. Under Su Li's gaze, Hejia couldn't resist the pressure and apologized to Hejia Bao, who was crying with a runny nose and tears. I'm sorry. Wang Chunhua gave Hejia a knife and said, You uneducated thing, you even hit your own brother. Hejia Bao is cultured, his cultivation is to grab someone else's things and attack his younger brother. Su Li directly scolded Wang Chunhua back. Wang Chunhua felt like she was choking her chest in one breath. When did this little slut become so sharp-tongued? This little slut couldn't say that before, let alone protect these 2 little wild seeds. If it's nothing, you can go back. Our temple cannot accommodate these 2 great Buddhas, Su Li directly ordered to expel them. Wang Chunhua snorted and said, If it weren't for the time to ask for silver, do you think I would be willing to come? I don't even want to take a look at your shabby place, let alone come. Silver. What silver do you want? Su Li couldn't help but frown. Wang Chunhua saw Su Li's confusion and clicked twice, saying, What's wrong? It's written clearly in black and white. Do you still want to turn your face and refuse to accept it? What? Is there still white and black text? Su Li's head was getting bigger and bigger, and the memory she had accepted was not like this one. No matter how hard she tried to think about it now, she couldn't remember it. Su Li neither admitted nor denied it, but said, "Take out the things and show them to me. Who knows if you're just talking empty talk? Babies, please ask for tickets." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. A Huge Debt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. A Huge Debt. Wang Chunhua looked excited upon hearing Su Li's words, even more so than when Hejia Bao was beaten just now. She relies on these silver coins every month to eat and drink spicy food. If Su Li reneges, she will eat and drink whatever she wants. Every month it's like this, but you say I'm just talking nonsense. I don't think you want to admit it anymore. I'll tell you, the third wife. You agreed to this. Your name was signed and your fingerprints were pressed on it. If you don't give me the money, I'll immediately burn down your shabby little house. Wang Chunhua's fingers wished they could point to Su Li's nose. After listening to Wang Chunhua's words, some familiar yet unfamiliar scenes came to Su Li's mind. The original owner Su Li was lazy and couldn't bear it. Wang Chunhua didn't even like her own son, let alone a daughter-in-law with no blood ties. Every time Wang Chunhua eats, she shares some soup and water with Su Li. Su Li, who is so big, can't eat enough of that food and is on the verge of collapse every day. Wang Chunhua, this mother-in-law, was teasing her, and the two sister-in-law above and her younger siblings below couldn't get along with her. She usually did dirty and tiring work for her, and 2 of the 3 sentences were about squeezing her. In this family, the treatment of the original owner was not even as good as that of a dog. Su Li's hot temper simply can't tolerate such treatment. She makes a fuss every day, but no matter how much she makes a fuss, no one pays attention to her. Even her husband Yufeng treats her coldly. After Su Li gave birth to the child, she found that Yufeng was particularly fond of the child, and Su Li felt that her opportunity had come. In order to verify her idea, Su Li took the child and tested Yufeng a few times, only to find that this move was really useful. As long as she used the child as an excuse, Yufeng would compromise with her, which was something that had never happened before. So Su Li split up as soon as the child was full moon. Upon hearing this, Wang Chunhua wished she could clap her hands and cheer. She was very dissatisfied with Su Li giving birth to 2 children from the beginning. She felt that these 2 children were unable to help the family before the age of 3, and the family suddenly had 2 more mouths. No matter how much they ate, it was just food. When they grew up, they had to spend money to marry a wife, and after marrying a wife, they had to have children. With so many unrelated people eating and spending money, Wang Chunhua became increasingly angry, and a malicious sprout emerged from her mind. She wants to divide Yufeng's room and not give them anything, preferably giving her all the money she earns. However, she also felt that this matter was unlikely. Leaving aside whether Yufeng agreed or not, their spines wouldn't have been stabbed to death after such a division. Wang Chunhua couldn't bear the silver earned by Yufeng from hunting, and didn't want to continue raising idle people. Yufeng will not propose a separation, and Wang Chunhua can only take action on Su Li. If Su Li asks to propose a separation, the initiative lies in Wang Chunhua's hands. So, taking advantage of Su Li's changing ways during her confinement, she would criticize her in the yard and even secretly let Su Li's sister-in-law join her camp. Su Li's sister-in-law understood Wang Chunhua's meaning and felt extremely happy. After all, if Su Li's family was kicked out, there would be one less person to share the property in the future. Naturally, they raised their hands to support this good thing. As expected, Su Li couldn't resist any longer and began to split up. Wang Chunhua smiled inwardly, but still had a reluctant expression on her face and spoke words of persuasion. Su Li felt nauseous when she saw Wang Chunhua's pretentious appearance, and wished she could rush up and tear off Wang Chunhua's face. The people in the village heard that the daughter-in-law of Lao He's family was splitting up, and they also came over to persuade Su Li. After all, they had just given birth, and if they split up, there would be less labor force. Relying solely on Yufeng may not be able to support their mother and son. No matter who the visitor is, Su Li refuses to listen to any persuasion and insists on separating her family. She even threatens to take her child to jump into the river without separating. Finally, the stalemate could not continue, and Wang Chunhua stood up to speak. Separation is possible, but after the 3 houses are separated, they will have to pay 7 taels of silver per month for their elderly care. The family's land and houses will not be allocated to them, only a piece of barren land at the foot of the mountain, allowing them to build their own houses. They were only given 4 portions of the dishes at home. After all, there were only 4 of them and they couldn't use them if there were too many. Yufeng earns a maximum of 5 taels of silver per month from hunting, and there is no division of land or houses. Everyone thought that Su Li would not agree to such strict separation conditions. Who knew that Su Li would nod without saying a word? As long as she could split the family, not to mention 7 taels of silver, even if Wang Chunhua wanted 10 taels of silver, she would nod and agree. Anyway, the person who is tired is not her. As long as Yufeng goes hunting more, what is 7 taels of silver? If Yufeng were exhausted to death, it would be even better. If it met her wishes, she could go back to her mother's house to find her crush. Su Lily sorted out the memories in her mind and wished she could pull out the original owner's soul and beat him up. She had never seen someone so foolish before. Don't worry about dividing the family, even if you pay a few taels of silver in a month. Others only give the elderly couple 1 or 2 silver in a month after dividing the family, and it's doubled by them. Yufeng can earn 8 or 9 taels of silver from hunting in a month now, and give Wang Chunhua 7 taels and the others 1 or 2 taels left. However, Su Li, a despicable woman, has spent the silver in some useless places. Grandma, you're a bear. Su Li was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Wang Chunhua snorted from her nose and said, "Give me the silver." Su Li glanced at her and said, "Why are you in such a hurry? There are still a few days left before the money is due. What money do you want when you come over?" Wang Chunhua put her hands on her hips and said, "I used to give it this way." Su Li sneered, "It used to be before, now it is now. When it's time, you come back and get the money. There's not a penny left now. I'm not used to your stinky habit. You." Wang Chunhua was so angry that her chest heaved violently. A new batch of cloth has been added to the cloth shop in the town, and it's time for her niece's full moon banquet. She also wants to make a new outfit and show off at her mother's house. What are you? Am I wrong? Even if you ask the whole village, no one says I did it wrong. I have to be busy with work. The gate is over there, so please walk slowly without seeing me off. You wait for me. If you can't pay the silver, I'll make it difficult for you to live a good life. Wang Chunhua angrily pulled He Jinbao away. Before leaving, He Jinbao made a face at He Dahu. He Eru waved his fist at He Jinbao. He Jinbao curled his lips and thought of He Eru's ruthless beating, which made him a little scared. After Wang Chunhua left, Su Li first conducted a full-body examination on the 2 brothers to see if there were any other injuries on their bodies. You can't do this. He Eru tightly grasped his chest. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Educating Children. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Educating Children. Su Li rolled her eyes. Boys nowadays are really good at protecting themselves, but it seems that they use the wrong method. Silly, don't make me talk nonsense again. He Dahu and He Eru were all reluctant, and in the end, under Su Li's oppression, they had to choose to surrender. He Eru's ear had a small piece of skin peeled off by Wang Chunhua, which was not a big problem. He Dahu was a bit bruised from being hit by He Jinbao so many times, but fortunately he did not suffer any internal injuries. Children recover quickly and don't need special treatment. It will be fine in 2 days. Su Li looked at the two brothers seriously and said, a hero doesn't take immediate losses. Before starting, check the opponent's situation. If you can't beat them, run away. Don't be fooled and directly confront others. But he wants to grab our meat patties. Hejia murmured softly, his eyes fixed on his shoe upper. Su Li reached out to touch his head and said, if he wants to eat, give it to him. If you want to eat, I will cook it for you tonight. In this situation, there are only 2 brothers at home. Even if you can beat Hejia, your grandmother is still on the field, and you will still suffer in the end. Hejia puffed up his face and said, you're lying, there's no food left at home. He saw Su Li take out all the grain today, and the last grain in the cabinet was cooked by noon, so they didn't have anything to eat tonight and had to go hungry. Su Li chuckled and kept the meat patties with them for fear of going hungry. However, considering their previous situation, Su Li understood their approach again. Didn't your father go to town? He will definitely buy grain back and won't be hungry for you. According to Yufeng's character of cherishing children, he will definitely buy food back. This has been the case for so many years, and this time should not be an exception. Su Li mentioned Yufeng, and the 2 brothers finally remained silent. After all, Yufeng still has a lot of credibility. Su Li couldn't help but give another explanation as she watched them. It's never too late for a gentleman to seek revenge. If you want revenge, you need to have enough strength. Remember not to act so recklessly in the future. We cannot be bullied by others, nor can we bully others. Do you hear me? Got it. Hejia and Hejia responded in a muffled tone. Su Li said everything she needed to say, whether they really hurt her or if they went in one ear and out the other, as long as they had a clear conscience. The wasteland in the backyard has not been fully opened yet, and Su Li plans to continue working with a hoe. She looked at the bamboo gate lying on the ground, speechless and unsure of why she wanted this courtyard door. To prevent thieves, it's unnecessary. When the thieves saw the appearance of this house, they probably ran away with a bucket before entering. Exorcism. It's possible, after all, this subject has some dog blood plot involved. Su Li stepped forward and lifted the bamboo door on the ground, then tied it back with a hemp rope. Everyone else has a gate, so she has to come in no way and cannot be specialized. Hejia and Hejia were exploring the room, then slowly moved out and finally moved behind Su Li's buttocks. Su Li noticed their approach and didn't say anything to continue busy with her work. Xianggong came out of the room and saw Su Li repairing the door, just like seeing a ghost. Is this still the Su Li she knows? Helping her a big favor, not to mention giving her a bowl of wild pork, and even personally repairing the door today. This kind of behavior is something she wouldn't do unless Su Li gets involved. Su Li noticed the scrutinizing gaze and looked up. Xianggong hurriedly averted her gaze and walked away with a bucket, but her walking posture was still a bit strange. Su Li frowned. She didn't say to rest and not do heavy work, but in the blink of an eye, she carried water. Is this sincere about not getting along with her? Forget it, even if she didn't listen, there was nothing she could do. Su Li withdrew her gaze and continued to repair the door. After repairing the door, Su Li carried a hoe and walked towards the back of the house, followed by 2 small tails. Hejia and Hejia cautiously followed behind Su Li. They didn't dare to get too close to Su Li because they were afraid that Su Li would drive them away. After a busy afternoon, Su Li was already sweating profusely, and with a small lunch, she was tired and hungry now. Today's exercise volume has been reached. Hejia and Hejia were not idle either. The 2 brothers helped Su Li turn the cut grass into a pile, which saved Su Li a lot of trouble. Su Li praised, not bad. I know I've helped my family with the work. I'll go back and cook eggs for you. The eggs at home were still sent by Xianggong, Otherwise, according to the owner's urine habits, there wouldn't be even an eggshell in the house. He-Dahu and He-Eru felt a little embarrassed on their faces. This was Su Li's first time praising them, and their hearts were instantly sweeter than eating honey. Su Li lit up that pile of grass, and it was useless for the family to take it back without raising livestock. It was better to burn it in the field as fertilizer. Watching the last flame extinguish, Su Li said to the two little ones playing happily in the field. "They're all like mud monkeys, come home with me and wash them." He-Dahu and He-Eru stood up from the ground, patted the soil on their bodies, and looked at Su Li with some fear. Su Li, She's not a tiger, does she need to be like this? Upon returning home, Su Li glanced at Chen Xiang's house. The door was ajar and she didn't hear any movement inside. Su Li first took a bath for the two little ones, and then took a bath herself. She couldn't bear the sweat and smell. There are too many stinky clothes at home, and Yufeng's days at home are numbered in order to earn the money he gives to Wang Chunhua every month. And the original owner was a person who was too lazy to grill snakes to eat. She didn't wash her own clothes if she could, and the clothes of these two children were never washed. Either the two brothers throw their clothes into the water and stir them up, then take them out to dry, or Yufeng hurriedly washes them after returning from hunting. Su Li sighed as she tidied up. She put all her dirty clothes in a bamboo basket and walked towards the river with the basket on her back. So many clothes, washing them at home is really a waste of water, and that half tank of water is probably not enough for her to wash her clothes for the first time. Along the way, Su Li received many strange looks, especially when everyone saw her carrying a basket of clothes. Her expression was like seeing a ghost. When we arrived at the riverbank, there were not many people there. Usually, everyone got up at dawn to wash things, and when the sun came out, they had to rush to the fields to work. There were really no people like Su Li who came to wash clothes in the evening. Su Li is not used to washing things with soap pods yet, and she plans to make some soap herself so that she can not only use it herself but also sell it at the market. My family is really short of money, relying solely on Yufeng. I estimate I will have to live in that dilapidated house for the rest of my life. Su Li lowered her head and washed her clothes seriously, but she hadn't noticed a black shadow on the river. End of this chapter.